I, quite literally, I woke up from a coma from having tried to kill myself, and it was very clear to me what my psychiatrist had been saying for years. The choice is not between, you know, a drug that has side effects or not. You know, life is not ideal. Yes, your drug has side effects, and yes, if you don't take it, you're going to die. And that had been clear to me, but there's something really crystal clear about actually nearly dying. I have not, since I emerged from my suicide attempt, there has not been a day that I have not taken my medication. It's hard to say. I mean, I had the advantage, as I say, of having been treated by someone I knew was a superb clinician. Most people don't have that advantage of being able to evaluate their doctor in advance. So that, I think, was a huge advantage, and particularly since in my particular illness, one of the worst things that can happen for a certain kind of severe bipolar illness is to be given antidepressants. Is that my psychiatrist knew better and didn't do that, or only for very short term and very controlled periods, very, very short, and only once maybe or twice. So that I'm very fortunate in that respect. I would never say how fortunate I was. On the other hand, there were real difficulties because I was constantly concerned about losing my license, somebody finding out. So I didn't go into a hospital, and the California commitment laws were such that I could keep out of a hospital. And I should have been in a hospital, and I should have had ECT. And I now have advanced directives written out from my doctor and my family that say, this is what I want done. If I get severely depressed again, if I get manic again, I want ECT, I want to be treated at Johns Hopkins, I want to be treated by the following doctors. I do not want the following medications, I do want the following medications. All the things that, we encourage people to do in advance, I do. But at that time, it wasn't really possible. Again, it's hard. I think it's one of the things that's been great over the last 10 years or so. People are just a lot more educated about it, particularly young people. If you go, I spend a lot of time on college campuses because it is an illness that hits young. And I am just staggered by the amount of information, not all of it accurate, but a lot of information that people have, much more than their professors and their administrators do, about these illnesses, particularly about depression. And I think that one of the things, for example, at Hopkins, we have a very active program that goes out into the public and private schools in Baltimore and Washington and now across the country, and just teach people the symptoms of depression. Just in a very straightforward way, say, these are the symptoms, really treatable illness, important that you get treated early, matter of fact, and so forth. Teach the teachers, teach the parents. Parents learn all about these mondo bizarro diseases that nobody gets, and they don't learn about depression, which is what is actually most likely to hit one of their kids. So I think there's more education out there. With bipolar illness, it's more complicated because it often gets tied up with alcohol and drug abuse, agitation, problems with behavior that people don't necessarily associate with psychiatric problems. Well, I think that, I think a couple of things. First of all, I am a huge advocate of prescription drugs given wisely and for the right reasons and the right diagnosis, and also psychotherapy. I mean, I think psychotherapy saves lives and is hugely meaningful. And I think that one of the unfortunate aspects of prescription drugs working well is that people tend to think that's enough, and usually it's not enough. Sometimes it is. There's no question in this day and age that I think there's a lot of overprescription. From a public health point of view, still the overwhelming problem is that people are not treated enough for depression. Depression remains undertreated. But are there certain zip codes, education levels, areas of the country where people are medicated if they're just a little volatile, a little moody broody, a series of bad days, break up with a relationship? Yeah, they are, and it's outrageous, and I don't think anybody would defend bad practice. And it gets along your earlier question about medicating grief or medicalizing grief. It's the same thing. You know, it's the last thing you want to do is medicating people because these drugs do affect the brain. Now, they affect the brain in a lot of good ways, as we're finding out, in terms of regenerating parts of the brain that are damaged. And it's important to put it in the perspective of both mania and depression are very toxic conditions to the brain. I mean, they are really bad for the brain. And most of the medications are really pretty good for the brain. But for sure, there are definite pockets of society where people are just overprescribed.